Thomas More Law Center, a public interest, conservative constitutional law firm, came in and saved the cross. I said to my wife, you know, I was always interested in constitutional law. That's the kind of law that I really appreciated in law school, but I didn't want to work for the ACLU, so I sent a resume to the Thomas More Law Center. I was out here in Michigan, and my wife and I were flown out here by Tom Monahan and Dick Thompson, and we loved it. They fooled my wife because it was July and it was a day like this, and she was like, wow, Michigan's great. So she was fooled because she's a Florida native. I wasn't fooled too much. But we did love it. We loaded up our truck and we moved from San Diego to Michigan. The moving company told us we were the only family and they moved that way that year. Everybody else moved the other way. But you know, after working with Thomas More Law Center, fighting a good constitutional fight in the courtrooms across this nation, you know, we were doing First Amendment cases, freedom of speech cases, religious liberty cases. The biggest case I worked on was defending Lieutenant Colonel Chisani, who was accused by Congressman John Murtha of covering up a massacre in Haditha, Iraq that never occurred. 8 Marines were originally charged with murder. All the Marines, except one, is still going through the process of being either acquitted or exonerated and having charges dropped against them. It took us 3.5 years, but we got the charges dropped against Colonel Chisani. He was being allowed to be honorably discharged. So that was something that we were very proud of being able to accomplish over there and helping our troops out. Dick Thompson and Tom Monahan were thinking of asking me to move back to Florida. My wife's family's down there, my family's snowbirds, and we were thinking about it. They wanted to open an office in Abbey, Marietown, for the Thomas More Law Center, and we were thinking perhaps we'd do that. You know, we had a lot of choices before us, but our 3rd child was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect, and we were at St. Joe's in Ypsilanti at the time, and they said you had to go to U of M. And we were basically given 3 choices. You can either terminate your child's life, you can have hospice care, or you can go to U of M and try to save his life. So we went to U of M and tried to save his life. We originally thought we'd only be in the hospital originally, you know, for a couple days, go home for 6 months, and then come back for an open heart surgery, and that would be that. They did tell us that a lot of times babies that have congenital heart defects, like our son had, there's chromosomal issues that could be a problem, whether it's Down syndrome, Disorder syndrome, or a myriad of other syndromes I've never heard of, or other physical problems. And my baby was born prematurely at 34 weeks, and he did have a lot of other problems, but they were all in the heart area and some other areas. What I mean by that is his left pulmonary artery was discontinuous. It was connected, but connected to something that was going to close off, and we had to operate really quickly or he'd lose his left lung. So operating on a baby that's big, you know, his heart's the size of a walnut, it's not something you really want to do, but we had to do it. Operation took longer than it should have, caused a brain bleed, which caused our son to have a stroke, cardiac arrest, seizures. We got those under control, but it took a while, and long story short, we ended up staying total in the hospital, probably about 3 months, maybe a little less. We had 2 open heart surgeries, 2 brain surgeries, and a stomach surgery. And through that whole process, Michigan, you know, rallied around my family. Whether it was my neighbors, my friends, Ann, who used to work with me at the Thomas More Law Center, helped out tremendously, and her husband, Mike. And, you know, my neighbors would mow my lawn, take care of my other dogs, take care of my 2 children, because when you have a baby in that situation, you can't really leave the hospital. So my wife and I would platoon back and forth when we could, but you know, we were by our baby's bedside advocating and praying, and the whole healthcare debate was going on during this time, and we got very nervous that in the future, if healthcare reform came about in a way that caused rationing of care, that the seniors who rightfully should be worried about rationing of care, we were concerned on the other end of the spectrum where it costs a lot of money, neonatal care, that you have 15 beds in that ICU that cost $1 million each probably. You have some bureaucrats saying, hey, we can use that money better for more people elsewhere. So we were fearful that if a family like mine were presented with a baby like ours in the future, you'd be told you can either terminate a child's life or have hospice care because we don't do the other thing anymore. And that's something that, you know, Michigan gives people all over the world literally hope that you can have your baby's life saved here. When you wait in that children's hospital, Mount Children's Hospital, there are people literally from all over the world because this is one of the few places here in Boston and Philadelphia that do what we do.